Hello again, Church Tech people. This is Michael Sanders from FBC Midlothian. About a year ago, I posted a video giving a little tour of our brand new TripleWide setup. Well, it's been a year, and I wanted to give a little update on how we've changed things and improved things a little. As you can see, our stage setup is a little different. We've added some wood paneling on the sides, added some LED downlight bars, and hanging lights, and looks pretty nice. We like it. You'll also see that the video backgrounds are running much smoothly than they were last year, and that's because shortly after I posted last year's video, I built an entirely new presentation computer that was a good bit more powerful than the previous one. So things are working really smoothly now, and I'll show you how we got it set up. Alright, so this is the new computer that I built to be our main presentation machine. It cost about $1,000 to build, so it's not terribly expensive, but it's plenty powerful. You can see it's got a Core i7 4790 CPU at 3.6 gigahertz with 16 gigs of RAM, and it's running, it's got two solid-state hard drives. So the C drive is a 240 gigabyte drive for the operating system and programs, and then the D drive is where all of EasyWorship's resources are stored, another 240 gigabyte solid state drive. The video card is a GTX 960, and I switched from using two cards to drive 5 displays to one card to drive 3, using the Matrox triple head to go for the third display. So that way, instead of trying to divide up its resources between two different video cards, the computer can just see a single display. Whereas before, I was using 3 outputs from the video card and enabling NVIDIA Surround in order to achieve the single triple-wide display. And that uses a lot of system resources. The computer has to work harder to do it. With the triple head to go, it sees the box as an entire display, and so the triple head to go is set to a triple wide 1280 by 720, totaling 3840 by 720, and this seems to help it to work much more smoothly. I was asked to show how I achieved our triple wide display with EasyWorship 6, and how I modified our videos and such to account for the different sizes of the screen. So I was going to show you a little bit of how I did that. So I created this project that is a triple wide converter. It takes a conventional triple wide video where it's just one contiguous triple wide motion background or countdown or whatever it is, and it resizes the sections of it in order to adjust it for our screen sizes, so that when we put them on the screens, they look contiguous, and it accounts for borders and all that kind of stuff. So I took the measurements of our screens, the measurements of our borders, and converted those into pixels, and figured out the percentages that they needed to change in order to fit right. So if you're doing something similar, you'll have to take measurements of your screens and do a little bit of math to figure out how to resize the different sections of the video. So let's take the triple wide videos I get from EasyWorship, which are 3840 by 720 as they come. So I have this source timeline, and this is where I just drop the video straight into it, so that way I can use this as a nested timeline in my other things and break it up. So that way when I bring in a new video, all I have to do is alt drag the video over this one, and it replaces it in every composition. So that's the source. So then I have a left, which contains just the left portion of it, the center, which contains just the center portion, and the right portion of it. Now, the left and the right need to be scaled and repositioned. So let's bring this over here so you can see what I've done. Now I leave the composition itself normal, and I do the scaling and adjusting in the composition that brings them all together, which is this output composition. So you can see on the left, I've got my anchor point positioned to the upper right corner of the left composition, and then I've scaled it up 126%, and I adjusted it to the right slightly so that it goes under the center composition. Now this is to account for the border, so that way it doesn't look like the border is being skipped whenever it's on top or whenever it's being shown on the screens. Then on the right composition here, again scaled up 126%. Anchor point is put up in the top left corner and put in the position underneath the center portion a little bit to account for the border. And to figure out how many pixels it was, I measured how many inches the two combined borders of the screen were. I figured out how many pixels they were based on that, and that told me exactly where it needed to be positioned. So then you have a complete composition, and you just render that out, and when you put it up on the screens it will look like one contiguous image. And then I do the same thing for countdowns. You can see it's just the exact same thing, it's just each composition is 5 minutes, 10 seconds long, or however long it needs to be. Now for triple-wide graphics that come from like CMG, those have a resolution of 1920 by 360. So let's find our sources or our outputs here. You do follow the same process, but your positioning is going to be a little bit different because it's a different number of pixels in the original video. But it's the same principle. You just figure out, based on the size of the original project, where your position of the left and the right needs to be. And then also, because rather than 3 16:9 screens put together, the CMG videos are 3 4:3 screens put together, I've scaled down the video in the source here a little bit in order to, first of all, in order to keep portions like the welcome and the countdown and stuff in the center screen, making sure they don't bleed over the border. Then also to kind of get the maximum amount of image. And I said a minute ago that it was 19 by 360, but it's in fact 19 by 480, the original file is. Like here in Line Blast, you'll see, yeah, it's 1920 by 480. And so in order to account for that, because I could scale it up to 100%, like if I do that, and then we'll see on our output, what's happening is we're clipping off the top and the bottom some, so we're actually losing some of an image which has already been cropped from 1920 by 1080. So I want to use as much of the image as possible, and so to do that I scaled this down to 89%, and then we get a little more of the image. So that's how I adjust the video, the motion backgrounds and welcome and countdowns in order to flow seamlessly across our screens. Okay, now I'm going to show you, once we get into EasyWorship, how we put the songs together and make them fit correctly on the screens, make sure the lyrics look good, that kind of thing. So the first thing I did was I created a song theme, and this is pretty simple. We're going to select our text box here that has the lyrics in it, and we're going to drag the far left edge over to the left until it snaps. It snaps right there. That is where the dividing line is between the screens, and so good job EasyWorship for including that little snapping feature, and do the same thing from the right until it snaps. So now our lyrics will only show up in the center part of the screen, And then I like to change our font here to Century Gothic, because it's a font that's on most computers and it looks clean, modern, neat. Take off the bold, take off the shadow, take off the outline, because those things are kind of outdated. And that's it. Our song theme is ready to go. Oh yeah, we got to make a song theme test. Okay. So then we'll come over here to our songs, and here's an old song that came over from our old database. We'll go to edit this song. We'll go to, and as you can see, the text box goes all the way across all three screens. So if we were to have one long line, it would go all the way across all three. You could even take it to the extreme. So if you don't have borders and your screens are all the same size, then this is fine. But we don't, so we need to keep all the text in the center so that some of the letters don't get lost in the borders, and that kind of thing. So we're going to go to our theme. We're going to select the theme we just created, and you'll notice that also takes out the background, which is what we want, because we like to put in different motion backgrounds each week. We don't like the song to necessarily keep the same motion background all the time. And I'll show you how to put in the motion backgrounds here in a second. So now we need to fix our text so that it looks nicer. Some people like to do the 2-line thing. I'm okay with up to 4, especially if the lyrics are coming quickly one after the other. Oh yeah, the other thing we can do in our song theme is adjust our transition time in the inspector here. Transition, 1 second is default, but we found that when doing lyrics that it's better for it to go a lot quicker. So we like the blend, but we want it to be faster so that the lyrics are ready to go when we start singing them, and the person operating it doesn't have to anticipate quite as much. So we like that. 0.3 seconds is about where we like it. So close that, okay. Go back to our song here. Reselect our song theme. Okay. Now we sometimes get requests on, what was that song you sang? And so an easy way to let people know what song it is we sang is to put the title at the beginning. And I like the title to be bold. And then I also like it to be the same size in most songs and to be a different size than the rest of the song. So I select do not auto size. 72 point font is about good. So then we got a nice big bold title for the song at the beginning. And then also I like to make this slide alone a 1 second transition. So then when we're coming out of the previous song, I see we messed up something there. We made it 0.03 seconds, which is way too fast. Transition. Come on. 3, 0. There we go. That's the transition that I want. Okay. Sorry about that. Get back into our song here. Reselect our theme again so that we have the right timing. Okay. So we go to this transition time for the very first slide, make it 1 second, and then we can go to the other slide and see that they're 0.3 seconds. So that way, coming out of the previous song, we have a slower 1 second transition into the title, rather than such a swift, jarring transition from one motion background or video to the next. Okay, so let's make a new schedule here. We'll bring this song in. And now we're ready to add a motion background. So I've created my backgrounds library here. We're going to look through these, find one that's nice. How about that? I like the green one. Let's do the green one. So we just drag it straight on top of the song. And that becomes the background of our song now. So we go live. We got that 1-second transition. And now when we go to the next slide, lyrics change nice and quick. So that's very good. So that's how we put songs together in EasyWorship. So videos, if we go here to our videos library, if we just pick one, like this week we did a video called I Once Was Lost. This is a regular 16:9 video, and it works just fine. If we drop it in, it's gonna only show up on the center screen.
Amazing Grace.
Just like that.
How sweet the sound.
It's saved.
Alright. So that's how we bring in songs and videos to EasyWorship to work with our TripleWide setup.